3 days after that dinner, the school held its autumn family day. It was a fairly familiar event at my school. Students who had relatives living nearby would often invite their parents or siblings to tour the campus, watch club performances, eat, and cheer for the weekend football game. For students from far away like me, this day usually came with a feeling that was hard to name. Not exactly sad, just homesick. I had planned to stay in the library and study. But early in the morning, Nathaniel called. "Jasper, it's me. Are you free today?" "I am in the afternoon." Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. "My mom wants to meet you." I was confused. "Meet me?" "Yeah." "Why?" Nathaniel laughed. "Because she hears Ethan mention your name every day." I thought it was just Ethan. "Me too." I froze. Nathaniel seemed to realize what he'd just said. He cleared his throat lightly. "I mean, I also tell her stories about you helping Ethan." "Oh." I tried to keep my voice normal, but the corner of my mouth had already curved up without my noticing. "Okay, I'll come by." That afternoon, the campus was busier than usual. Country music echoed from the stadium. Stalls selling apple pie, grilled hot dogs, and buttered popcorn filled the air along the walkways. When I arrived, Ethan was the first to run over. "Jasper." He waved as if it had been ages since we'd seen each other. "Mom's waiting." "Hold on." "Why?" "I'm nervous." Ethan laughed loudly. "Don't worry. My mom's really sweet." Right then, a woman in her mid-50s stepped out from the picnic table area. She had brown hair just like Nathaniel's and gentle blue eyes. Nathaniel stood beside her. "You made it." "Hello, Mom." I bowed my head slightly out of reflex. The woman smiled warmly. "Finally, I get to meet Jasper." She hugged me very naturally. So naturally that I stood frozen for 2 seconds. Nathaniel laughed. "Sorry." "My mom likes hugging people." "Since when?" His mother turned to glare at her son. "Since you were little. I remember you always making me hug people." "That's a different thing." Ethan burst out laughing. The atmosphere immediately relaxed. Throughout the meal, Nathaniel's mother kept asking me all sorts of questions. Where my family lived, what I was studying, whether I missed home, whether I was eating enough. Every so often she'd turn to Nathaniel. "Look at him. Jasper's thinner than the last time I saw him in the photo." I nearly choked. "Photo?" Nathaniel, who was drinking water, froze too. "Mom." She blinked. "I thought you'd told him." Nathaniel coughed dryly. "I haven't." His mother laughed, completely carefree. "He took a picture of the two of you eating burgers and showed it to me." I turned to Nathaniel. He avoided my eyes. For the first time since I'd known him, Nathaniel blushed. Truly blushed. From the tips of his ears to his cheeks. Ethan looked at his brother, then laughed as if he'd discovered something extremely amusing. "Bro. Quiet. You're blushing." "Ethan. You really are. Focus on eating." I tried to hold back my laughter, but failed. Nathaniel looked at me helplessly. "You're laughing too?" "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize. Just laugh." So all 4 of us laughed together. After the meal, Ethan ran off to the football field with some friends. Nathaniel's mother went to watch the school choir performance. Only Nathaniel and I were left, walking around the lake. The wind carried the scent of dry leaves. In the distance, cheering echoed from the stadium. Nathaniel put both hands in his jacket pockets. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "My mom." "Why?" "She talks too much." I shook my head. "I thought she was sweet." Nathaniel laughed. "Only you would think that." "I mean it." A moment later I asked, "Did you really send my photo to your mom?" Nathaniel didn't answer right away. We walked a few more steps. Finally he nodded. "Yeah." "Why?" Nathaniel looked out at the lake. "Mom asked how life at school was going. And I told her about Ethan. About work. About you." My heart skipped a beat. "What is there to tell about me?" Nathaniel smiled. "A lot." "Like what?" You're very patient. Kind. You overwork yourself. You forget to eat. You stay up late every night. I looked at him. You know all that? I pay attention. Just 3 words. Simple. But they stirred something inside me. We sat down on a wooden bench overlooking the lake. A pair of swans glided slowly across the water. Nathaniel suddenly asked, Jasper, if there were someone who had something very important to say, but never had the courage to say it, what do you think that person should do? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I asked back, would it hurt anyone? Nathaniel shook his head. No. Would it disappoint anyone? Maybe. Would it change an existing relationship? Nathaniel looked down at his hands. Perhaps. I took a deep breath. If it were me, I would say it, no matter the outcome. Why? Because. I smiled. There are things that, the longer you hold on to them, the more they become regrets. Nathaniel said nothing. He just looked at me for a long time. That gaze made me feel like he wanted to say something. Several times he opened his mouth, then stopped. Right then, Nathaniel's phone rang. It was Ethan. Bro. The boy's voice rang out, full of excitement. I just saw my midterm grades. Nathaniel put it on speaker. How'd it go? I passed. I got a B-. Nathaniel and I looked at each other, then laughed together. Congratulations, Nathaniel said. There were 2 seconds of silence on the other end. Then Ethan laughed loudly. This is the first time since high school I haven't thought of myself as a burden to you. The smile on Nathaniel's lips faded instantly. He gripped the phone tighter. Hey! His voice dropped low. Don't ever say that again. I have never once thought of you as a burden. Never. I looked at Nathaniel. For the first time, I saw the emotion in his eyes clearly. It wasn't just a brother's love. It was the feeling of someone who had carried far too much responsibility from far too young an age. And right then, I felt a very selfish wish. I wanted to become someone Nathaniel could lean on, even just once. But I had no idea that chance would come much sooner than I expected. On a rainy night that would begin to change everything between us. 2 weeks after Family Day, the weather turned cold very quickly. In the mornings, a thin layer of fog covered the grass across campus. Students started wearing thick coats. Hot coffee cups had practically become permanent fixtures in their hands. It was also the busiest stretch of the semester. Group assignments, final projects, internship interviews, midterms for the remaining classes. My schedule was so packed that some days I'd open my phone and only then realize I'd forgotten to reply to a message from the day before. Nathaniel wasn't doing any better. He was studying, interning 3 days a week, and still trying to make time to go home to Ethan. We still saw each other regularly, but mostly just a few minutes before and after class. Yet somehow, just seeing Nathaniel walk through the door was enough to ease the exhaustion of my whole day, even if only a little. Friday night, I was sitting in the library when my phone kept buzzing. 3 missed calls, all from Nathaniel. I called back immediately. Hello. The other end was silent for a few seconds. Then I heard rapid breathing. Jasper. Nathaniel's voice was hoarse. Where are you? The library. Could you come help me? My heart sank. What happened? My car died. Where are you? Nathaniel read out an address. It was a parking lot nearly 20 minutes from campus. I'm coming right now.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. I just stay there. I'll be there. By the time I arrived, it had started to rain. Nathaniel stood under the bus stop shelter, his jacket already half soaked. His SUV sat motionless in the lot. I ran over. Are you okay? Nathaniel nodded. I'm fine. Why didn't you call roadside assistance? I did. What did they say? At least another hour. I checked the time. Almost 10 at night. It's freezing out here. I know. Why not wait in a cafe? Nathaniel gave a faint smile. They're already closed. His hair was wet from the rain. A few drops still clung to his eyelashes. For some reason, in that moment, Nathaniel no longer looked like the always composed, always strong person I knew. He was just someone very tired. I took off my own scarf. Here. Nathaniel shook his head. You'll get cold. I just came from inside the library. You've been standing out here for almost an hour. Without waiting for him to refuse, I wrapped the scarf around Nathaniel's neck. My hand accidentally brushed the back of his neck. It was ice cold. You're this cold and you say you're fine? Nathaniel laughed softly. I can handle it. I don't believe you. The tow truck arrived almost 50 minutes later. They said they'd have to tow the car to the garage and it couldn't be checked until the next morning. How are you getting home tonight? I asked. Nathaniel checked his phone. I'll probably call a rideshare. Right then, a bolt of lightning split the sky. The rain grew heavier. The rideshare app's surge pricing nearly tripled. Nathaniel sighed. Perfect timing. I thought it over for a few seconds, then said, Come back to my dorm. Nathaniel looked up. What? My room has a couch. I don't want to be a bother. I don't want you standing out in the rain either. But, just for one night. Nathaniel looked at me for a long moment. Finally, he nodded slightly. Thank you. My roommate was home for the weekend, so the room was fairly quiet. Nathaniel stepped in and looked around. Your room's really tidy. I don't have much stuff. I can see that. He laughed. Even your fridge only has milk, eggs, and yogurt. I have instant noodles too. Nathaniel burst out laughing. That's not a diet. That's college. I object. Why? I'm a college student too. But you know how to cook. Nathaniel shrugged. Circumstances. I knew he was referring to the years he'd spent taking care of Ethan, so I didn't ask further. I handed Nathaniel a loose t-shirt and a pair of sweatpants. Wear these for now. What about you? I have another set. Nathaniel took them. Thanks. Go change in the bathroom. When he closed the door, I realized my heart was pounding fast. Someone I secretly liked was in my room, wearing my clothes, staying the night. Don't think too much into it. I reminded myself. This was just an unavoidable situation. Nothing more. Around 11 o'clock, we sat on the floor, each holding a bowl of hot instant noodles. Nathaniel looked at me and smiled. It's been a while since I've had instant noodles. I thought you looked down on them. No. Except what? I forgot how good they taste on cold days. We ate and talked about all sorts of things. The strictest professor in the department, the school's basketball team, the new sci-fi movie that had just come out. It was the longest conversation we'd had since we first met. Not interrupted by Ethan's homework. No rush to leave. No checking the clock. Just two people sitting and talking. I realized I really liked that feeling. Nearly midnight, and the rain still hadn't let up. Nathaniel stood by the window, looking down at the dorm courtyard. Thank you, he said. You've said that a lot today. I know. Nathaniel smiled. But I still want to say it. I walked over and stood beside him. Outside, raindrops reflected the streetlight into long streaks of light. Is something bothering you? I asked softly. Nathaniel didn't answer right away. After a long moment, he finally spoke. Tomorrow is the anniversary of Daniel's death. The air seemed to still. I wasn't surprised at all. I just felt my chest grow heavy. Nathaniel kept staring at the rain. I hate days like this. Why? Because... He smiled sadly. I always ask myself, if I had arrived 5 minutes earlier that day, would things have turned out differently? I turned to look at him. It wasn't just longing anymore. It was the guilt Nathaniel had carried for 3 years. And I knew. Tonight would be the first time he truly told me about someone named Daniel. That night, I didn't say anything right away. I just stood beside Nathaniel, watching the rain beat steadily against the window. Sometimes, with certain kinds of pain, a hasty word of comfort only becomes another burden. What a person needs isn't an answer. It's someone patient enough to listen. After nearly a minute of silence, Nathaniel gave a small laugh. I just made things heavy. I don't feel that way. You don't. I just feel. I looked at him. That you've carried this alone for too long. Nathaniel didn't respond. He just exhaled quietly. I met Daniel when I was 16. Nathaniel's voice was very slow. We went to the same high school. He was always late. His hair was never combed. But his grades were always at the top. I laughed.
Sounds familiar.
Nathaniel tilted his head.
Familiar.
I once had a friend like that too. Nathaniel smiled. Daniel was really good at making people laugh. Even when I was angry, he'd always find a way. I let him keep talking. We were never a couple, Nathaniel said. Never dated either. It was just. We both knew. Knew what? Nathaniel looked at the rain. That if we'd had more time, maybe we would have tried. My heart gave a small ache. Not from jealousy, but from regret. Regret for a story that never got the chance to begin. Nathaniel sat down on the edge of the bed. That night, we had planned to see a movie. I got held up at work. Daniel texted. He opened his phone. In the Notes app there was a saved message. I never deleted it. Nathaniel smiled sadly. The last line he sent was,
No rush.
I can wait. Nathaniel gripped the phone tightly. But he didn't get to wait. The accident happened on Daniel's way to the theater. A drunk driver ran a red light. It was all over in a matter of seconds. I got to the hospital. Too late. Nathaniel's voice broke on the last words. That was the first time I saw him cry. Not out loud. Just quiet tears falling silently. I didn't move to hug him right away. I knew Nathaniel wasn't the kind of person who let others touch him easily when he was vulnerable. I just slid the box of tissues closer. Thank you. He smiled through his tears. Even now, you're still thoughtful. After a long while, Nathaniel grew calmer. Since then, I haven't dared to start anything with anyone. I always thought, if I lost someone again, I wouldn't be able to bear it. I understood. Finally, I understood. The reason Nathaniel always kept his distance. Always polite. Always kind. But never letting anyone get too close. Not because he didn't want to love, but because he was too afraid of losing someone again. Can I ask you something? Nathaniel nodded slightly. You said you had a boyfriend. Just to turn other people down? Nathaniel laughed. Embarrassed. Yeah. Pretty terrible, right? I believed it. I know. Ethan told me. Nathaniel pressed a hand to his forehead. That kid. He was only worried about his brother. I don't blame him. He looked at me. Are you disappointed? Why would I be? Because I lied. I shook my head. I just feel sad.
Sad.
Because it turns out, everyone who confessed to you got rejected by someone who doesn't even exist. Nathaniel burst out laughing. It was the first laugh since he'd mentioned Daniel. I never thought of it that way. It was nearly 2 in the morning. Nathaniel stood up. I'll sleep on the couch. I've already got a blanket ready. Thanks. Before turning off the light, he said my name. Jasper. I'm really glad it was you tonight. I looked at Nathaniel. What do you mean? If it had been someone else, I wouldn't have told them. Why me? Nathaniel smiled. A very gentle smile. Because I trust you. Just 5 words. But they kept me awake for almost the entire night. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. There was already the smell of pancakes in the kitchen. Nathaniel stood at the stove, wearing the only apron I owned. It had a very silly phrase printed on it. 404, cooking skill not found. I couldn't help laughing. You're still laughing? Nathaniel held up the spatula. It took me 10 minutes to find the flour. The cabinet's right in front of you. I know, but I took the scenic route. Are you sure you're a computer science major? I'm starting to wonder myself. We laughed together. In that moment, I suddenly realized this was the first time I'd seen Nathaniel laugh so freely. Not forced, not trying to seem fine, just a genuine laugh. After breakfast, we went back to the garage to pick up his car. Turned out to just be a dead battery. Nothing too serious. Before getting in the car, Nathaniel looked at me. Are you free tomorrow evening? I have Ethan's tutoring session. I mean, after the session. Why? Nathaniel took a breath. I want to take you to dinner. I thought we already eat together. This is different. How's it different? Nathaniel smiled, but there was a flicker of tension in his eyes. This time, it's just the two of us. My heart skipped. It was the first time Nathaniel had ever asked me out. Just the two of us. I didn't know what that dinner would mean. I just knew that, as his car pulled out of the lot, I stood there for a long, long time. Long enough that the ringing of my phone pulled me back to reality. It was Ethan. The moment I picked up, he laughed mysteriously. Jasper. So, finally. My brother's starting to get brave. Ethan's words left me standing frozen in the middle of the parking lot. So, finally. My brother's starting to get brave. I stared at the phone screen for a few seconds. What are you talking about? Ethan chuckled. Not telling. Come on. I promised Nathan. Promised what? Can't say. I sighed. Then why call me at all? To congratulate you. Congratulate me on what? You'll find out soon. You. Bye. The call ended. I looked at the phone and laughed helplessly. Those two brothers really were alike in one thing. They loved saying half a sentence and leaving the other person to guess the rest. The next evening, I went to tutor Ethan as usual. But from the moment I stepped into the house, something felt different. The living room was tidier than usual. On the dining table sat a small bouquet of sunflowers in a glass vase. Even Ethan was wearing a button-down shirt instead of a hoodie. Do you have guests coming? I asked. Ethan looked at me, then glanced up the stairs.
No.
Then why? Nathan's nervous. Nervous? Yeah. He's changed shirts 3 times already today. I nearly burst out laughing. Really? I almost thought he had a job interview. Right then, Nathaniel came down from upstairs. He wore a navy sweater, dark jeans, and his hair was styled more neatly than usual. The moment he saw me, he paused for a beat. You're here. Yeah. Traffic okay? Yeah. Good. Nathaniel spoke very normally, but his hands, clasping and unclasping, betrayed that composure. I had never seen him this nervous. That evening session lasted just over an hour. Ethan worked with great focus. At the end, he turned in his work and stood up, stretching. I'm done. Good. I'm going to a friend's tonight to study. Nathaniel turned to him. Yesterday you said you'd study at the library. Change of plans. Which friend? Ethan shrugged. A friend. What's their name? A friend. Nathaniel narrowed his eyes. Ethan. I'm heading out. He grabbed his backpack and ran to the door so fast it was as if he feared his brother might change his mind. Before closing it, Ethan turned back and winked at me. I had absolutely no idea what that meant. But Nathaniel did. He just shook his head, laughing helplessly. That kid. The house suddenly fell strangely quiet. Only the sound of the wall clock remained. Nathaniel took a deep breath. Let's go. Go where? Dinner. Right now. Yeah. I nodded. Okay. Nathaniel didn't take me to a fancy restaurant, nor anywhere famous. It was a small eatery by the river running through the college town. Warm yellow lighting, soft jazz playing. Only about 10 tables. The space was cozy enough that people naturally lowered their voices. Do you come here often? I asked. Nathaniel pulled out my chair.
No.
Then how do you know it? My mom recommended it. I thought you'd pick burgers. Nathaniel smiled. I wanted something different today. Dinner went more smoothly than I expected. We talked about the internship, about how Ethan had finally started liking programming, about plans after graduation. Do you want to stay in Illinois? Nathaniel asked. I don't know yet. What if there's a good company in Seattle? I'd go back. New York. Also considering it. What about you? Nathaniel turned his glass of water. I got 2 offers. From where? One in Chicago. One in Boston. Both good. Yeah. Why don't you look happy? Nathaniel smiled faintly. I don't want Ethan to switch schools again. I understood. Even though Ethan was already in college, Nathaniel still always put his brother before himself. After dinner, we walked along the riverbank. The streetlights reflected off the water in long streaks of light. The wind was cold. Nathaniel took off his outer jacket. Wear this. I shook my head. What about you? I'm not cold. Neither am I. You're lying. Before I could finish, Nathaniel had already draped the jacket over my shoulders. The motion was very natural, very gentle, but close enough that I could smell the familiar scent from his jacket. A scent of cedarwood mixed with a hint of coffee. I had caught that scent many times before, sitting beside Nathaniel, but never as clearly as now. Thanks. I already said. Nathaniel smiled. I don't want you catching a cold. We stopped on a small bridge crossing the river. Below, the water lay still as glass. Nathaniel rested both hands on the railing. Do you remember the first time we met? I remember. I dropped my books.
No.
Nathaniel laughed. It was me who bumped into you. We both took the blame. Yeah. Ever since that day, Nathaniel gazed off into the distance. I kept thinking, sooner or later, I'd see you again. Why? A feeling. I laughed. You believe in feelings like that?
No.
But that time I did. A long silence followed. Nathaniel gripped the railing gently. Jasper. Do you remember when you said, there are things that, the longer you hold onto them, the more they become regrets? My heart clenched slightly. I remember. Nathaniel took a deep breath, then turned fully to face me. His eyes were both tense and gentle, as if he'd been preparing for this moment for a very long time. I think, maybe it's time. Time for what? Nathaniel smiled very softly. Time for me to stop lying. He took an old wallet from his pocket, opened it. Inside was still a photo of Daniel. Nathaniel looked at the photo for a few seconds, then carefully put it away. For the past 3 years, I always thought, if I kept this photo in my wallet, I wouldn't be betraying Daniel. I fell silent. But recently, Nathaniel looked straight into my eyes. For the first time in 3 years, I found myself wanting to put it away. I don't want to forget him. I just want to give my heart a chance to keep living. I felt my throat tighten. Nathaniel took a step closer. His voice was very soft. And the person who made me want to do that is you. Time seemed to stop. The sound of the water flowing beneath the bridge remained steady. A cold gust of wind passed by, spinning a few golden leaves before they fell onto the river's surface. But I could barely hear any of it anymore. In my mind, only one sentence kept echoing. And the person who made me want to do that is you. I looked at Nathaniel. He didn't avoid my gaze, nor did he try to laugh it off to lighten the mood like he usually did. For the first time since we'd met, Nathaniel let me see everything. The nervousness, the anxiety, the fear of rejection, and the hope.
I'm sorry.
Nathaniel spoke first. Why are you sorry? Maybe I said it too suddenly. I've thought about this a lot. I don't want you to feel like you're just a replacement. I shook my head immediately. Never. Nathaniel paused. I know Daniel mattered a great deal. I also know no one can replace someone who's gone. I don't want to replace him. I don't need to either. Nathaniel looked at me closely. I smiled. I just want to be Jasper, not Daniel, not anyone else. A few seconds later, I saw the corners of Nathaniel's eyes redden. He turned his face away, laughed softly. You really are. What? Always know what to say. I don't really. I just say what I'm thinking. Nathaniel took a deep breath. Jasper. I like you. This time there was no beating around the bush.
No ambiguity.
Just a simple confession, but sincere enough to make my heart ache. I'm not even sure when I started liking you. Maybe it was the time you sat patiently for 3 hours just to help Ethan understand a math problem. Maybe it was the time you gave your coat to a stranger during a snowstorm. Or maybe, Nathaniel laughed, it was from the moment you dropped your books on me. I laughed too. Then why didn't you say anything? Nathaniel looked down at his hands. Because I was a coward. You're not a coward. I was. I was scared. Scared that if I loved again, I'd lose someone again. I was even more scared you might not like men. Scared you'd start avoiding me. Scared Ethan would lose a tutor. Scared. He hadn't finished. I had already taken a step forward. The distance between us was now less than half a meter. Nathaniel. I like you too. Nathaniel stood still, as if unsure he'd heard correctly. Have for a long time. I smiled. So long that I once deleted a dozen texts where I tried to confess. Nathaniel blinked. Really? Yeah. Why? I thought you had a boyfriend. Nathaniel covered his face with his hand. Oh my God. I hate that lie. So do I. But back then, I thought it would make things simpler. I never imagined the person I liked would actually believe it. We looked at each other, then burst out laughing together. The laughter echoed across the empty bridge, light as if both of us had just set down a burden we'd carried for far too long. A moment later, Nathaniel asked very softly, So, what are we now? I tilted my head. What do you want us to be? Nathaniel smiled. For the first time in my life, I want to be a little selfish. Meaning, I want to be your boyfriend. I felt my cheeks flush. At 22 years old, I still blushed like a high schooler. I accept. Nathaniel looked at me. Really? I'm not that dumb. You just confessed. It'd be a waste to say no. Nathaniel burst out laughing. That smile was so bright it suddenly reminded me of the old photo of him with Daniel. But this time it was different. That smile no longer belonged to the past. It belonged to the present. And I was standing right in front of him. Nathaniel raised his arm, a little awkwardly. Can I hug you? I didn't answer. I just stepped forward and hugged him. It was a very gentle hug. Not intense, not rushed, but enough for me to feel Nathaniel's heartbeat racing just as fast as mine. He rested his chin lightly on my shoulder, exhaled slowly. I thought I'd never have the courage. Me neither, I answered. Thank you for finally saying it. Nathaniel tightened his arms slightly. No. Thank you for still being here. By the time we got back to the brothers' house, it was nearly 10 o'clock. The moment we opened the door, Ethan was already sitting on the couch, a bowl of popcorn in his hands. Seeing us, he raised an eyebrow. Finally home. Nathaniel froze. Why aren't you asleep? Waiting. Waiting for what? Ethan glanced from his brother to me. Finally, a mischievous grin spread across his face. Waiting to see whether I should call Jasper my tutor or my brother-in-law. Nathaniel choked on his water right there. What? My face went bright red too. Ethan laughed until he was clutching his stomach. One look at you two and it's obvious. Nathaniel, helpless, said, Who taught you to talk like that? The internet. I'm cutting the Wi-Fi tomorrow. You wouldn't dare. Why not? Because your boyfriend still has to tutor me. The room fell silent for exactly 2 seconds. Nathaniel turned to look at me. Boyfriend. He repeated it softly, then smiled. Perhaps this was the first time in years that Nathaniel could call someone by that word without feeling afraid. And for me, just seeing that smile was enough for me to know that everything I'd waited for, all this time, had been completely worth it.